Minister. Go ahead.
Good afternoon and welcome everybody. Let me start with the land acknowledgement. The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of Erie, Neutral, and Huonot. Thank you very much for coming in here, and it was a very productive meeting today with the different stakeholders, along with all the three different levels of government, provincial and municipal, and along with my federal colleagues. We all are in here. So, and I welcome you all, and I welcome our Honorable Minister for Transportation. She is in here. If you guys have any questions, please, you can feel free to ask her. Thank you, Minister.
Okay, merci beaucoup. So thank you very much, Aslam. I want to thank the members of our local MPs from Hamilton and Oakville, John Paul Danko, who's here, Lisa Hepner, and Seema Khan. And of course, my friend and colleague, our Minister of State for Labor, John Zaricelli. And I really do want to thank ArcelorMittal Dofasco for hosting us today. This has been a great conversation. We had productive and focused discussions at our Made in Canada Ferries and Rail Summit. I really also want to thank Mayor Horvath, who was here with us. I want to thank Premier Ford, who joined us by video, Minister Sarkaria, who joined us for the summit, and we had great participation of provinces and territories from across the country, including the Newfoundland and Labrador Minister of Transport, who was here in person, and provinces and territories who were present joined us virtually, and we had a bunch of MP colleagues who joined us virtually as well. What was today about? Today was about bringing together the big transport sectors, the rail sector, the maritime shipbuilding sector, together with our steel and aluminum industries, and having a conversation about how we can be using Canadian steel and Canadian aluminum in our rail sector, in our maritime sector, in our shipbuilding sector. Crucially, union leaders from across the country were here and played a really active part in the conversation. What we're talking about today is buying Canadian, building Canadian, having great jobs for Canadian workers across the country. Les personnes et les entreprises et les industries représentées aujourd'hui sont les moteurs d'économie canadienne. On a eu les représentants des syndicats, on a eu des représentants des provinces, on a eu les représentants de l'industrie de l'aluminium, qui est tellement important pour notre pays, et une industrie que, comme l'industrie de l'acier, est sous une grande pression. During the election campaign, Prime Minister Carney said to Canadians, we as a country can give ourselves, we can give each other more than anyone can take away from us. That was a powerful promise. That was one of the reasons that Canadians elected Prime Minister Carney and our new government. Our meeting today, bringing together the rail sector, bringing together the maritime sector, the shipbuilding sector, together with the steel and aluminum producers, together with union leaders, was about making good on that promise. It was about Canadians coming together to work together to build Canadian, to buy Canadian, to build the strongest economy in the G7 together. C'était vraiment une conversation riche, efficace, constructive. Pour moi, la conversation était vraiment touchante parce que j'ai vu grande esprit dans notre pays. Les Canadiens et Canadiennes, les travailleurs et travailleuses, ils comprennent que nous sommes dans un moment critique et qu'aujourd'hui, comme jamais, nous devons travailler ensemble. Nous devons appuyer nos voisins, nous devons appuyer nos travailleurs et travailleuses, nous devons appuyer nos industries. Et en faisant cela, nous réussirons à construire la plus forte économie dans le G7. Crucially, we had here many agencies, entities, crown corporations that are the responsibility of the Federal Ministry of Transport. In June, I sent letters to all of the entities under my authority, some of whom were here today, instructing them to buy Canadian and build in Canada wherever possible. I sent more than 70 letters. The instruction was support our steel industry, support our aluminum industry, support our softwood lumber industry, support Canadian workers. Today was about doing precisely that. Okay, merci beaucoup. On est très content d'être ici avec vous. Merci pour votre travail, votre présence. Et on est prêt à répondre à vos questions.
Yeah, good.
Thank you. There we go. All right. There we
And
go.
all of us are here ready to answer your questions, so please let us know who you'd like to have answer.
Thank you. We're about to start the media Q&A. I'd ask that media representatives identify themselves and the media that they represent. It's one question and one follow-up per media. Avant de commencer la période de questions, je demande aux représentants du média de s'identifier ainsi que les médias qu'ils représentent. Ce sera une question et une question de suivi par média. Do we have a first question about today's event announcement?
Hey there. Is this
And
working?
could we maybe
Hey,
turn up the volume a little bit?
It's tough to hear.
Fortunately, there's a lot of activity behind us, the sign of a vibrant Hamiltonian economy, but it's a little hard to hear.
Let's see. Is that already being done? Can you hear me better now? Still not working?
We'll go with it.
Project, we'll
We'll
ask
go
you
with
to
it.
repeat
All
yourself
right.
if we
I'll
can't
put
hear
up the
you.
volume here.
Thanks.
So, Justin Chandler with CBC Hamilton. I've got 2 questions for Minister Freeland. Firstly, the Prime Minister is facing off against Pierre Poilievre for the first time in the House this fall. How does this change cabinet strategy?
We're going to keep on doing what we've been doing, and that is to work hard for Canada and Canadians, to work hard to fulfill the promise that we made to Canadians in the election campaign, which is to build one Canadian economy, to build the strongest economy in the G7. That's what Canadians elected us to do, and that's what we're going to keep on doing. And I will point out the Prime Minister Carney faced off against the Conservative leader in the recent federal election, and I think he acquitted himself extremely well. I think Canadians think that too. That's why they elected him.
And my second question for you is, what is Cabinet's approach to Donald Trump right now, and will you address calls for more sectoral support for industries hard hit at the Cabinet meeting?
Our approach is what it's always been, which is to stand for the national interest, to build Canada, to fight for Canada, to defend Canadian workers, Canadian jobs, Canadian industries. We have always been there to support Canadian industries and Canadian workers. We are going to continue to do that. And today's meeting was a very real, very practical action to support hard-hit Canadian industries. Today's meeting was about acting on the reality that we need a lot of steel and a lot of aluminum here in Canada. The Prime Minister has promised to build Canada. That is an effort that is going to require a lot of steel, a lot of aluminum. And we brought together today some of the critical sectors, the rail sector, the shipbuilding sector, the ferry sector. And this was about really putting them together with the steel industry, putting them together with the aluminum industry to be sure that as we are building Canada, we are using Canadian steel, we are using Canadian aluminum. And to give you just one example, we had Alto here, the high-speed rail group. And they talked to us about the immense amount of steel that project will use. So valuable to have them here talking to the steel sector to be sure that when we build ambitious rail projects in Canada, we are using Canadian steel. Likewise, we had the big shipbuilders here. We have a national shipbuilding strategy. We need more ferries. And we put together the people who build the ships, who build the ferries, with the Canadian steel and aluminum producers to be sure they're using that Canadian steel and aluminum. Thanks.
Hi there, Roger Collins, CHCH News. Just on the Garden City Skyway Twinning project, will that be using domestically produced steel?
You want a Hamilton? So I'm going to give my Hamilton colleagues a chance to shine. And we had a really great conversation after our summit meeting talking about local Hamilton issues, including big construction projects in Hamilton. And what we agreed is that just as our government is committed to using Canadian steel and aluminum in big projects across the country, we're absolutely committed to doing the same thing here in Hamilton, the city that makes steel.
Thank you for the question. So the Garden City Skyway is a provincial project under the Ministry of Transportation for Ontario. We did have Doug Ford join us this morning. He was by video conference, and he spoke very strongly about the provinces of Ontario's commitment to buy Canadian, to ensure that Ontario projects are using Canadian materials. And that was a big part of the conversation today, was making sure that when there are those government contracts, such as the Garden City Skyway, that there's a partnership between all levels of government, federal, provincial, and municipal, to make sure that they are using Canadian steel and aluminum. And of course, from the federal perspective, that is our expectation, that those projects will use Canadian steel. And we heard that directly from the Premier Ford today as well, that that's his expectation as well.
I'll just add,
Thank you.
we also heard from private companies that, you know, that they want to use Canadian steel and that there are all kinds of benefits to companies for using Canadian steel. So we're hearing it from every level of government, but also from the private sector. It is our expectation and our hope that everyone uses Canadian steel, but the benefits are being seen even within the industries.
And that was the bottom line of today's very lengthy summit. That's only made in Canada. The steel and everything and aluminum will be used in all those projects. Yeah.
Okay, great. And just for a follow-up, will the federal government ensure Canadian boat builders have a real chance to bid on upcoming ferry projects, given that no domestic company bid on the recent BC Ferries contract?
Excellent question. And one of the main issues that we talked about today is ferries. We talked about how the Canadian ferry fleet at all levels, you know, both the federal ferries and the provincial ferries, needs to be renewed. And we had the shipbuilders here today to hear from them what it's going to take to make it possible for them to bid on those contracts. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but what we heard from the Canadian shipbuilders, and we had a number of shipbuilders here, both the three big shipyards, but also other shipyards, including Ontario shipyards. And we heard from them tremendous enthusiasm to build Canadian ships and to build Canadian ferries and to use Canadian steel and aluminum when they build those ships and ferries here in Canada. I was very encouraged and inspired by that.
Hello, Matthew Van Dongen from the Hamilton Spectator. Minister, I'll ask you a similar question because Premier Ford was in town just a couple of weeks ago, and I think he made it clear that he thought that Ontario shipyards deserved a fair slice of the pie, I think is the way he put it. Is there room in your strategy to accommodate that? Are there going to be federal contracts coming our way here in Ontario?
We had Ontario shipyards here. They were very proud to be present, and absolutely they need to be part of the solution to building ships and ferries here in Canada, and part of the solution to using Canadian steel and aluminum when we do that. Ontario, one of the things that we really heard from the Ontario shipyards is a reminder that Ontario is a maritime province, that Ontario knows how to build ships. I think it was important for all the entities that purchase ferries to hear that, and it was important to make the connection between Canadian shipbuilders, including Ontario shipbuilders, with steel and aluminum producers. So it's a great question, and that's one of the reasons we're here.
That's enough for me, thanks.
Thank you.
What's that? Say if you need.
Seems like it, yeah.
Okay.
All right, thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Beautiful. Thanks everyone for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, that was, we need a double.